There are so many killers now in Dead by Daylight, and today we're going to rank them from worst to best. I consider myself a pretty average player, and so I hope I can give a pretty balanced opinion on where each of the killers land in the tier list. Hey everyone, and let's get into it. We start off in F tier, very weak. Number 39, the Skull Merchant. Merchant is currently the weakest character in the game, but it's sort of not her fault. In late 2024, she received a considerable nerf to her power, a temporary measure whilst the devs cook up a rework. In her current state, she's got a lot of downsides. The main one is that her drones nowadays only have one scan line, making it much harder to build up stacks and cause a damage state. She is likely therefore the weakest killer currently, with even the devs seemingly wanting you to stay away from her for now. So for now, I would just say take their advice. Number 38, the Trapper. Trapper is a character that gets changed in some form almost every year, due to him almost persistently falling behind with the times. He's a character who does struggle in DBD's faster climate nowadays. He takes time to set up, with his traps being spread throughout the map, many of these maps not being overly friendly for traps either. Yet he does have the possibility to turn a game around incredibly quickly with just a good trap or two. It's this weird balance, however, that makes Trapper quite inconsistent. The only way I'd debate you can find this consistency is just by straight up camping, honestly, or simply locking down an area. He's a good camper still. His add-ons have always been very solid too, a character always falling behind, but not without his benefits. Number 37, the Ghostface. Ghosty is sad to see so low, but it's true, he's quite weak as killers go. It's largely down to the part of him that most find entertaining too, and that's his stealth-heavy playstyle. This ultimately slows him down a lot, generally leading to less successful results in matches. On the positive side, his reveal mechanics these days are much better than they used to be. He has a number of nice add-ons, and he can be genuinely strong when played well. I think that's the tricky part though, is playing this stealth-heavy character well, balancing stealthy, thoughtful play whilst not losing your grip on the game and keeping up consistent pressure. It's all quite difficult. Ghosty requires a lot of patience, both in-game and as a player, I think too. You can absolutely still get results though, when making use of his power well. Our next tier is E tier, weak. These are killers who are still on the weaker end of things, but maybe aren't quite as restricted as some of the characters lower down. Number 36, the Legion. Legion is still on the weaker end of killers as they still struggle a lot due to not having too much going for them aside a first easy hit and a bit of pressure through Deep Wound. Granted, they are a little better than before, their recent change, as they can be a bit more chase focused now. They're able to cancel a little quicker, and so you can use their power a bit more now when looping longer tiles. Their 5-hit down is also another nice mechanic to have, but doesn't have much effect if survivors know how to counter you. Legion excels, however, against survivors who don't know how to counter them. You can take advantage of it quite easily when survivors don't split up. Legion have some strengths, but they're definitely on the weaker end of killers. Number 35, the Nightmare. Freddy got his big rework at the start of 2025, but he's still sort of weak honestly. He has a bit more to him now, with his doubled up ability of fireable snares and fake pallets that he can remotely explode. However, even with both at his disposal, he's still quite weak. Which is fine by the way, not everyone has to be strong, and at least now he's a lot more fun to play than he once was. He does have a number of benefits too. He's still got solid map traversal with his gen teleportation ability, especially considering now he can do it to completed gens. His new snares are also generally more effective compared to his old ones, and can be used more actively in chase. Dream pallets are a bit hit and miss, but when they hit, it can be huge. Number 34, the Shape. Myers is a character either considered really strong or really weak depending on who you ask. Considering his general state and placement though, he is on the weaker side of killers. Myers starts the game slow and has to put a lot of work in to gain momentum and keep it going. He does however benefit from being quite stealthy, with his small terror radius and then having his insta-down when he's hit tier 3. He further benefits from having many add-ons that can alter his kit, some of these doing so in quite impactful ways. With this said, even some of these are a bit risky and many players nowadays do know how to outplay certain add-ons like Tombstone Piece. With a Myers game, you're always getting a bit of a dice roll, and he's on the weaker side generally. but does have clearly strong moments. Number 33, the Pig. Pig suffers from a similar thing to lots of other lower tier characters, and that's a stealth-focused playstyle. It's a playstyle, unfortunately, that is largely punished just due to it being generally slower. However, Pig gets the benefit of her reverse bear traps. These allow for great slowdown and a sort of pause to generator progress, as they quite literally put a timer on the survivors' lives if they don't deal with it. She also has her secondary abilities like her ambush. This is a decent tool to use here and there sparingly, I think, mainly to push people off loops or to try and get a cheeky little hit in. Honestly though, I think as killers go, Pig has sort of managed to push against the times more than many others down here, due to her traps always just holding her up to a level, I guess. Number 32, the Trickster. Trickster is a character that can be very strong or weak depending on the situation. In wide open areas he can be one of the most effective killers, but if there's a high wall present he becomes quite weak quite quickly. There are quite a few situations like that too. His main event nowadays is also a genuinely strong ability, but it suffers the same thing just on a greater scale. If there's any walls in your way, it's just not good. Trickster is honestly very reliant on how effectively you as the player can pressure and adapt quickly to your situation. Number 31, the Clown. Clown is a character that, despite the changing times, always stays pretty okay, just down to his power allowing such. His ability to slow down survivors in pretty much any instance is usually always helpful. The same for his yellow bottles, it's just always nice to have that extra speed. It's maybe not overly strong in every instance, but it's basically always useful. It means his chase and core ability just never have to evolve much with the times. His main difficulty comes in the wider pressure needed for a match, with his map control being quite low even if you're chasing efficiently. His pressure almost purely comes from his chase. It can be a little tricky at times, but being able to so easily counter survivors on loops is really nice. Number 30, the Demogorgon. Demogorgon I think used to be the character who would define the midpoint of the tier list for a long time for me, but now I think it's definitely shifted down a bit with time, and a power that has slowly weakened with it. Demo Shred is still a great damage and anti-loop tool, but it is greatly restricted by its rigidness. Its portals, whilst being a nice map traversal tool, are not the most efficient means of teleportation or travel out of the killer roster. They're not bad, but they're on the weaker end I think, due to requiring self-placement but also being breakable and quite loud. Overall though, Demo is still a pretty solid good boy. Moving on to lower average D tier. So due to just how many killers we have now, I've separated the average or mid tier into two tiers, lower and upper average. The lower average is simply the lower side of the average tier. Number 29, the Onryō. Sadako is tough to rank because it's debatable how to rank her based on her core playstyle, which is trying to get everyone condemned. Similar to Maya's, do you judge her by her strongest but slightly abnormal playstyle, or do you judge by a more standardized one? In Sadako's case, I would argue just due to how abundant the condemned playstyle is, this is how she should be judged. It's more popular, I would say. With that in mind, she's pretty strong. She does have restriction, and her power is very reliant on how aware survivors are, but it can be very strong. Teleporting about a ton and raising everyone's condemned until you can mori them is really effective, but it also can come with the possibility that survivors know how to counter you, so it has those moments of intense strength, but it's too inconsistent to place her that high. Number 28, the Dredge. Dredge pairs together a number of odd abilities into a somewhat odd feeling power. It has its Nightfall, which you can build up to with use of its other abilities, teleporting to lockers and using its Remnant. Dredge unfortunately has a number of downsides despite having so many appealing sounding abilities. Whilst its teleportation to lockers sounds amazing, it does suffer having to be confined by the lockers. Lockers are quite inconsistent on where they're placed around a map. Oftentimes you'll find some areas of the map just don't really have any. For its Remnant, it's a nice anti-loop tool, but it can equally be quite easily mind-gamed by a somewhat knowledgeable survivor. Finally, Nightfall and its buffs to your teleportation range just don't quite have the same effect as it used to. People are generally more aware of it now and can play through it a bit more safely. Number 27, the Doctor. Doctor is a character who, despite the game changing so much over the years, has been really consistent honestly throughout them. He's still just a really really decent and effective killer, and his core strengths of locating survivors and anti-loop are still really strong. He has the ability to pressure a map decently well, find survivors, and he can chase pretty efficiently too. It's a bit of a balancing game though, making sure you shock enough and at the right points, but not overdoing it either. Doctor also has a number of great add-ons that allow some helpful adjustments and buffs to his power and shocks. Not excessively powerful, but just a solid basic killer. Number 26. The Good Guy. Chucky has been pretty solid since he came out, but did take a bit of a hit last year with him being nerfed. He got a slight uptick this year though with some buffs, but he's still lower than he was originally. Chucky is still a sneaky little guy, and he can use his dash power to get some pretty straightforward hits. He just lacks a bit in the area of map pressure, most notably. He's a pretty strong chaser, but he struggles with wider pressure beyond this. Chucky does benefit from being small and having a third-person perspective too. These things sound a bit silly maybe as benefits, but they do genuinely help, especially if you're using them to your advantage and trying to make sure you're hidden upon your approach. You sort of need to be and make the most of his stealth, as he is a little slower than average too. Number 25. The Knight. Knight is in a much stronger state ever since the change to his guards and the ability to pick which you'd like to use. He's very solid nowadays. He's able to chase very efficiently, placing down his guards and using them to trap survivors off quite easily. He can also shred through pallets quickly with use of the Khan effects, and generally just apply a decent amount of pressure with the right set of add-ons. Knight's main weaknesses, I would say, is that he's otherwise just a normal killer once he's got a guard deployed. So whilst it can be useful to be entering 2 chases simultaneously, he can struggle in his own chase due to not having much. The same goes for the guard. Often the guard needs some support to actually catch a survivor, with most chases ending in survivors outrunning them. A decent time waste though, either way. Number 24. The Wraith. Wraith is a character who is very simple but does have a decent strength level despite that. He's still really average despite his simplicity, in a good way. His ability to cloak and uncloak with a small speed boost upon doing so actually makes him one of the few stealth killers who isn't restricted by the fact that he's a stealth killer. This is largely down to his power doubling up as stealth, but also speed or map traversal. It means he has on-the-go stealth and can pressure a lot more freely in a hit-and-run style. It's also fairly hard to punish Wraith for bad power usage, because he can just quickly cloak back again and catch up to you. A really solid average killer. Next up is C tier, upper average. This tier is the upper part of our average tier, the generally mid-tier killers. Number 23, the Cannibal. Bubba is a character that is surprisingly quite consistent and strong. He is a little affected by some maps and there's sometimes strange collision, but collision in general for chainsaws has actually really improved over the last year or so. It's not as much of an issue anymore. Bubba can get some really easy insta-downs and even simply chase well with his chainsaw, doubling up as a great pallet shredder. He's a great camper, maybe the best in the game, and he has the potential to down multiple survivors in a single sweep. He can have that quick snowball effect if you're not careful. His main downside is just how people tend to play against him. People are very cautious, pre-drop a lot, and will do all they can to not get themselves in a tough spot. Number 22. The Hag. Hag is a little surprising to see so low. She's a character who at one point was up in the A tier. She's fallen a lot, and this is down to similar reasons to other characters down here, which is the game evolving and leaving these characters behind a bit, trap and stealth characters primarily. Hag however does manage to hold on a little bit better, as she holds her traps on her and can reset her web much more efficiently due to her ability to teleport as well. She can sort of control her own momentum to some extent, where trap per se is much more reliant on the awareness of survivors. Hag can be brutally strong if she sets up and keeps her pressure, but she can also be laughably weak against an efficient team who snuff out your traps. Number 21. The Xenomorph. Xenomorph did get a couple nerfs this year, but it also got a number of buffs. It's still a very good killer too, and has a lot of strengths. Its tail attack is still very strong, even with its slightly longer windup. It has the ability to get hits over a lot of objects that are not possible for most killers. The flame turrets are a bit less of a downside now too, I would say. Xenomorph still really excels in chase and manages to get downs quickly. It's also quite efficient at traversing a map with use of the control stations and tunnels. skills. The main downside of this being that they're fixed to certain points, which sometimes isn't very beneficial. You also benefit as Xenomorph in small ways, such as its crawler mode allowing for some in-chase stealth due to being lower to the ground and able to use this to your advantage. Number 20. The Deathslinger. Slinger is another character that's mainly reliant on the player's input, in the sense that you have to be able to aim well to do well with Slinger. There's not much assistance really, and your power level in game is almost directly related to how well you do, and not so much how the survivors are doing. It's certainly not an easy ability to master, easy to understand, but it definitely takes a bit of time getting used to the projectile and its many features. Despite his slower speed, he still greatly benefits from being able to reel in survivors and generally just retain pressure due to his range. Solid killer. Number 19. The Lich. Vecna is a very interesting killer who doesn't really have a core power, but instead 4 different abilities he cycles between. This makes him immediately sort of mid-tier, as he doesn't really have a particular strength, but has lots of mini positives. He can do a bit of everything, but he's not overly effective at anything either. The closest he gets to a core strength is probably anti-loop, with his skeletons able to near guarantee damage on some windows and pallet drops, and his mage hand able to hold a pallet in place. These make it quite easy to counter survivor looping. There's a lot of considerations with him though, especially with all the various items survivors can collect from your treasure chests. Despite his abundance of abilities though, he's not a very hard character. The main difficulty comes in juggling the abilities, but this isn't too bad. They're all fairly simple, it's just piecing them together and figuring them out. It can feel a bit overwhelming at first, but he's not too bad. Number 18. The Cenobite. Pinhead is the only killer currently who is unavailable to buy. This also means he likely won't see many changes in the future, and so he's probably about the strength now that he'll always be, and that's a decent level. He's a difficult character, but he does have the potential to be very strong. He can catch up and shut down loops well with his chain shot, and his chain hunt is a truly deadly ability, that when chained together can end a match in mere minutes. Knowing how the box spawns work, getting a hold of that box and then stopping survivors from retrieving it is the core of Pinhead, and it's not easy, but it is strong when done well. Number 17. The Nemesis. Nemesis, I would argue, is the new midpoint for killers now. He's a good representation, I think, of a mid-tier, moderate killer in terms of strength. He has a consistent and reliable and relatively strong power with his tentacle, and the small wild card of his zombies. He's able to get a little information through them too. He's just really middle of the road, I think, in almost every aspect. He doesn't have a fatal flaw necessarily, aside maybe having to slightly rely on his zombies on occasion. Therefore, he's just the perfect representation of an upper average killer for me. Moving on to B tier, Strong. This is where we move beyond the mid-range and we start looking at the top tier, stronger characters of the game. Not quite the top, but somewhere between there and average. Number 16. The Huntress. Huntress is a character who hasn't changed all too much throughout the years, and she's always been quite simple yet effective. This is still the case. She's still a very effective ranged killer with her hatchets. While she lacks additional abilities, she doesn't need them really. Hatchets are enough completely. Huntress's main downside is a few loops here and there, countering her ability to chase and damage effectively, and sometimes when she can struggle to pressure a map due to its size. Generally though, most of her problems and her power in its entirety is largely dependent on your skill as the player. This is quite nice, with not many outside factors really affecting Huntress. What you put in is generally what you get out with her. Number 15. The Plague. Plague has and always likely will be quite a strong character, and that's because she denies a whole aspect of survivor gameplay, which is healing. With her vomit ability, she's able to make survivors broken and spread her infection, and this pretty much shuts down the possibility of regular healing. It's an odd and quite unique thing to face that isn't really replicated across any other killer. This makes her a bit of a wild card when she appears, and quite naturally strong. She also has her red vomit, which is an incredibly powerful tool that allows her to dish out damage incredibly effectively. Plague's main issues come in the form of coordinated survivor teams that know how to manage her power and coordinate fountain use and stuff like that. This doesn't even need to be teams on comms, just a coordinated team can actually counter her quite effectively. Number 14. The Executioner. Pyramid Head is another character our debate has been falling down the tier list pretty much since his launch. This is for the fact that over time, many things that made him stand out just aren't as key anymore. Back when perks like DS and Unbreakable were super oppressive, Pyramid Head acted as a strong counter, but now those things just aren't as prevalent and have been reeled in quite a lot. Pyramid Head still holds his own though, still having a great ranged attack and amazing utility with his cages, which act as a different hooking style. Number 13. The Oni. Oni is a character I think has dropped a little too over the years. He's someone who does struggle a bit more nowadays, I find, with him getting countered quite hard by survivors pre-dropping a lot, as this is the smart thing to do against him. I feel like more people know to do this now. There's a few more maps nowadays too that have loops that do make it a bit tougher to get around also, when he's powered up. He's still very strong though despite these things. He's a character able to absorb blood and power up into a fast, insta-downing character. His blood fury is still very deadly and can cause team wipes if you're not careful. I just find that most people are though nowadays. They're generally more careful around an enraged Oni and understand his restrictions in movement when he's powered up. Number 12. The Mastermind. Wesker, I would debate, has actually dropped a little in the tier list also, and that's because he just isn't quite as effective or strong as he used to be. His infection isn't quite as menacing, and he does struggle a bit more on loops nowadays, especially some with awkward angles or lots of corners. Overall though, he's still very good. His dash-based power is still up there on the stronger side, and he can catch survivors incredibly quickly. He also has a nice range of add-ons that let you adjust his dashes and movement to your liking, which is quite unique, but very nice to have, I think. Number 11. The Unknown. Unknown is a weird character, even when it comes to its power. Its power is just so unique when looking at powers more widely, considering it has a bouncing projectile, but it also has to hit and then hit again to do damage is just very unique. You have to play Unknown in a bit of a strange way, where you're being aggressive with your chase, but you also need to not be seen. It's a very odd combo, and can be a little hard to maintain. However, it can be very strong too. It does have the potential to catch a lot of survivors out, and even do crazy things like hits through walls when used right. It's this strange balance of weirdness, but the potential for incredibly high effectiveness and efficiency. It's a very fitting power for Unknown. A tier. Very strong is our next tier and the second highest. This tier is for some incredibly strong characters, but not quite the top. Number 10. The Houndmaster. Houndmaster has a lot going for her, with her dog being an incredible anti-loop and chase tool, but also a great tool for map traversal and pressure. The main thing working against you with Houndmaster is probably just the bugs. She was very buggy on launch, and now she's just a little buggy, but it fluctuates. She is great though at chasing, and actually a really efficient chaser. She can also get across the map quite well with the bonus speed from Snug Search. She's really all around solid and a strong character, it's just those bugs. Number 9. The Spirit. Spirit these days I do find is generally dropping on the tier list, but she's certainly not dropping as fast as others. It's a slower fall and replacement mainly just down to there being stronger killers being added. She was at one point a solid number 2 after Nurse, but I do think those days are long gone. Her ability to phase, going invisible and reappearing is still very strong. She does of course also rely greatly on sound and visual tracking though, which does make her one of the least accessible characters in the game. However, she can be very strong when played to her full potential. Her counterplay is more nowadays, but it's still not that substantial. Spirit is still a bit of a powerhouse when it comes to chases. Number 8. The Dark Lord. Dracula is one of the stronger recent additions and a character able to pressure a survivor team quite effectively when using his 3 forms to their best ability. Your Bat is of course a great map traversal tool, your Wolf great for pallet shredding and catch up, and your Vampire form being good anti-loop but also just basic killering. Similar to a character like Vecna, a lot of the skill for Dracula comes in the form of juggling his different forms and their abilities. Unlike Vecna though, I would argue they have much more distinct roles and strengths comparatively. Another strong character. Number 7. The Twins. Twins are a real force to be reckoned with when they're working. Just as I'm recording this video, there's this terrible bug going on with them. Twins have a lot of potential, which is why they're so high up this list. They're able to really effectively pressure a map and survivors with their ability to be in 2 places at once, and also just from Victor specifically. Due to his incredible speed and ease of causing damage, they can control a game pretty easily when you get a flow going, learning, and can end up as one of the strongest characters in the game. It's another character with that potential, but just requiring someone who is skillful and knowledgeable enough to really unlock it. I certainly don't think it's easy, but they do have the potential to be very strong. Number 6. The Artist. Artist is quite underrated, I think, and a character with a lot of potential. She's able to pressure a map incredibly well with her crows, further using them for anti-loop, but also long-range damage too. She can be really effective and efficient if you learn how to use her crows and power well. Her main downside is the variance of maps you can get, with some restricting her ability somewhat, such as maps with multiple levels. She also struggles a bit with her crows being countered by lockers. Overall though, Artist can be a really efficient and effective killer, and very deadly in the right hands. She does take quite a bit of practice though. Number 5. The Singularity. Singularity is one of the tougher killers in the game, but one that can also equally reward you for that difficulty. It's a killer with so much to monitor and so much going on, but the potential for it all to pay off. He's a very complex character, but can monitor almost the entire map with well-set biopods. You can then use these to make chases considerably easier, tagging and teleporting to survivors when necessary. Hux's main downside, I think, is actually just his difficulty and the wide variety of biopod placements you need to learn for each and every map to be truly effective on them. Otherwise he can be countered quite hard by use of EMPs, especially against a coordinated team. The potential of Singularity is something that is really high though. He's another character with so much potential, even if there is a difficult learning curve, and just a lot to adapt to and learn as you play. Finally, we have S tier, insanely strong. Here it is, we've reached the top. This tier is for the strongest killers in the game, who can achieve the best results the most consistently, and are generally affected the least by in-game variables. Number 4, the Hillbilly. Billy made a big comeback last year with his Overdrive rework, and since then he's solidified himself back into the top spots of the tier list. He's capable of incredible speed, the ability to insta-down, and traverse and pressure a map incredibly well. He's also a lot easier and smoother to handle these days, with maps generally having less weird collision, and him having a number of quality of life changes. Number 3, the Blight. Blight is still a very strong character with his rush and bounce power that allows him to traverse any map with precision and ease. He can quickly shut down loops, catch up to survivors, and apply pressure constantly. He further comes with a number of strong add-ons. He's helped also by the fact that his power is relatively straightforward, in theory at least. There's a lot to learn, of course, with Blight to truly master him, but he's at least easy and comprehensible to initially understand. Number 2, the Ghoul. The Ghoul, or Kaneki, is a character with immensely powerful movement ability, able to attach onto various surfaces and propel himself forward. He has a number of positives that really set him apart from most killers. He's able to traverse the map at crazy speeds, apply easy damage due to this, and with his ability to lock on. His main downside is probably just some maps with slightly inconsistent collision, causing him to sometimes fly off to somewhere you don't want him to. Kaneki's speed, however, and ability to be almost anywhere in an instant, shutting down loops with ease, and having constant map pressure makes him insanely strong. Number 1, the Nurse. Surprise, surprise! Nurse is a character who has debatably broken the game since her launch, with her ability to blink through walls and floors alike. She has the ability to get pretty much anywhere she wants in an instant, or at least very quickly, applying damage and pressure freely. Nurse does not have the typical pitfalls of most killers, with her simply not even having to consider many of them. Her main downside is simply learning her blinks, which are debatably difficult, a unique skill that isn't really transferable from any other killer. Maybe someone like Pinhead a little bit. Controlling larger maps can also be a little stressful sometimes. Aside these though, Nurse is incredibly powerful. She's been number 1 for, well, nearly 9 years now since she came out, so it's been a long time. She's probably going to be up here for quite a while too. Maybe forever, who knows? So there you have it. I do hope you enjoyed. Please let me know your thoughts too down below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.